Let's head back to our main story this hour. The Fuel Retailers Association calling on government to refrain from deregulating the fuel market. Let's discuss this a little bit further with Reggie Sibiya, who's the Chief Executive of the Fuel Retailers Association. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I suppose it's an important conversation to have because those who are already playing within the sector have had to go to banks to get loans, and they have to meet certain margins to ensure that they can honour those agreements with their institutions. And of course, this move, if it's done in June, will impact those already within the market.
Thank you, Rohiwa, and you 100% spot on. Firstly, maybe, let's also bring some context here because, we have a white paper on energy, which is a policy document. And it's very important that that the GMRE also, honors that policy direction the way it was originally intended. And quickly, there were 3 milestones, and in a particular fashion and order, as far as we understand it, that were defined within the energy white paper. Firstly, it was to address the issue of vertical integration through licensing to ensure that you are an operator in one activity in the value chain. And that has partially happened. And then the second part of that journey or milestone was then to effect transformation and through licensing again, to ensure that, the industry is transformed. And that's again squarely sitting on the DMRE. And then the last milestone was then to look at, price regulations, because the understanding was that now the industry is fully transformed. The new players have come in a space where there is, comfortable margins, not to be necessarily wealthy, but to have a fair return on their investments. And then once they are established and you've got them, then you look at these things of different price regulations. And what we're seeing is actually the complete opposite, because as we speak now, if you looked at the sector is less than 20% Africans. It's hardly transformed in terms of African participation. And if you talk about women, it's even much dire. Women representation, black African women, we're talking less than 5%.
Yeah.
So it's not that they have even actually fulfilled the second milestone. Even this very, very, what I call it, pathetic representation of Africans in the industry. So even the less than 20%, you are now actually strangling them. Yeah. As you rightfully said, Rohiwa, they come from a previously disadvantaged environment. They are highly geared. They've got loans to pay. And now you are talking about cutting margins. Even the current margins are not even sustainable because there is major under-recovery, Rohiwa.
No, absolutely. We are working with time here, Mr. Sibiya, so I just want to get through as much of this conversation as we can. Is the organization, the Fuel Retailers Association, are you against completely competition, or do you see that there is an alternative way to conduct the changing of the fuel structure within the market?
We are against competition in a system that is unfair. Let me also clarify this, Rohiwa. This is not deregulation. Deregulation is when you give retailers a space to sell at whatever price they want to, like it is with diesel. And diesel is completely deregulated. Maximum pricing is just the worst form of regulation. It's actually equivalent to a Nazi regime, because you're actually coming here and you're saying you're going to put a price cap, which is not going to take into account all the necessary expenses to run the business, and you're going to cut it below that expenditure level and actually make the current under-recovery even worse. It's a killer. That's what it is. If you want to kill businesses, Is this what is being proposed here? And we did say in our submission in 2018 that this is not going to work. And we are surprised that it's coming now in a very opportunistic way, taking advantage of the situation of rising fuel prices and the pressure from the motorists. And we are saying that's not responsible. Even under pressure, leaders must, rise up. Leaders must take a responsible. We are responsible for transformation. We are responsible for sustainability of businesses. We are responsible for jobs, which are all going to be affected by these maximum prices.
But what would you suggest is the solution in the medium term, Mr. Sibiya? What would you suggest be the solution?
Well, the solution is to look at currently the price build up, and I've always said that. I mean, the retail margins make only 7%, right? Mm-hmm. So where is the 93%? So why are we looking only at the 7%? We must go to the biggest contributors in the margin, taxes, including levies, like the DSML levy, which nobody has been talking about, the customs and excise duties, which nobody is talking about, over and above the road accident fund and the fuel levy. Those make 34% of the ULP 95, for example, in Gauteng. We're saying we must look there and see how we can actually effect the reduction of the prices and look at other mechanisms of how we can improve the economy so that more people can contribute to other forms of taxes so that we can sustain the fiscal requirements.
And finally, Mr. Sibiya, just some clarity on a view that you have as an organization. The cap on 93 octane, that would not be good if it was instituted. Why is the organization of this view?
Well, we also of that view because one of our key thrusters on our submission is that, it's in ULP 93 is only sold in inland. If you go to coastal areas, there is no ULP 93. Now you are now creating again what we call a discrimination, where you're saying that retailers in inland must make less margins because they are the only ones who will be selling ULP 93, and then the coastal retailers will be continue to making better margins. That also is just not fair. It's pure discrimination, is unfairness, and we're saying if the department wants to phase out ULP 93, they must do that. And because why did we have even the DSML, the 10 cents in Gauteng on 95? It was because the department was discouraging inland motorists from using ULP 95. They wanted them to use more ULP 93. And that has failed dismally because as we speak now, more people are using ULP 95, as much as it was expensive in inland than 93. So that's just going against all what they are doing. And so we're saying, well, if you want to phase out ULP 93, just phase it out. Don't be opportunistic and at the expense of inland retailers who are now going to be suffering major losses compared to other retailers in the coastal areas.
No, absolutely. Mr. Reggie Sibiya, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That is the Chief Executive of the Fuel Retailers Association. Of course, we're unpacking debates around the fuel price in South Africa.